Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Talking Nerdy, the show where we take various story arcs and events from current comics and we cover them. I'm your host, Obi-Wan Jabroni. Now, our story today is Way of X number 1 through 5, written by Cy Spurrier, with art by Bob Quinn, and colors by Java Torgalia. Now, join us as we follow Nightcrawler as he tries to find meaning and hope in the new Krakoan age, and battles with his Catholic faith in a world where mutants can no longer die. Now, with that, let's start talking nerdy. First up, we have Way of X number 1, Playing Make-Believe. Mutant kind has a new home, Krakoa, an island of wonders, where the sins of the past are absolved and the future is bright. From life-saving medications to the miracle of resurrection, the Krakoan nation represents promise and possibility for its people. But there are those who sense darkness beneath the veneer of the paradise, and there is one who will try to save mutant kind from itself. Nightcrawler. Now, we open in Professor X's bedroom on Krakoa, and the professor wakes up from a nightmare and telepathically calls out to Nightcrawler. And we learn that Nightcrawler is on a mission in Venice with Pixie, DJ, Loa, and Blink. Now, Professor X tells him that he was just checking in on them and that he can talk when they return. Nightcrawler and his team teleport into the Anti-Mutant Museum and begin to look around. DJ is teasing Loa and Pixie and says that he bets that they are scared of the Patchwork Man. And Nightcrawler asks who the Patchwork Man is. And they tell him he's just a scary story that the kids of Krakoa talk about, kind of like a mutant boogeyman. And Kurt looks into a room and sees a group of people being brainwashed and taught how to kill mutants, and we learn that it's being ran by the organization Orcus. Now, as he's looking through and they're looking through more rooms, a man turns the corner and sees them and yells for help. And the room full of people rush out into the hall. Pixie blows her dust at the class and stuns them all as DJ puts up a shield wall to block the bullets from the other side. And Pixie gets shot in the head and Nightcrawler teleports over and knocks out the last guard. With Pixie dead and the mission semi-successful, the team go home. Now, the next day at the Green Lagoon Bar on Krakoa, Magneto approaches and says that he got Nightcrawler's message about the museum. And Kurt tells Magneto to sit down and says that he knows that he has felt much heartache and he may have found something to help him. Kurt yells for lights, and they come on and reveal the bar to be full of mutants and a giant statue of Magneto's first appearance on Cape Citadel, Florida, that they stole from the museum sitting in the middle of the room. And Magneto is not happy. And Kurt says he's sorry, it was just a joke. But Magneto takes this chance to turn the joke into a speech. Don't apologize, Nightcrawler. As a matter of fact, I'm grateful those old missiles are a testament to folly. All those years we wasted, mutants vying with mutants, using the clumsy tools of the enemy to fight amongst ourselves. Look around you, my friends. Look what we can do when we embrace commodity. We all defeated death. We have shaken the world. We have built an empire of enlightenment. And all within our first year. Yes, those pitiful old toys are a gift, an invitation to forsake the past and to seize the brave new future. To anyone who cares enough to take seriously. And he leaves. He turns and leaves with Kurt following him. And Kurt asks what that was about, and Magneto tells him that it was a sermon, and that he heard that Kurt was wanting to found a mutant religion. Kurt says he was thinking about it, and Magneto tells him that in a world where they can't die, religion is not needed, and that Kurt is too busy looking for snakes and not seeing the Garden of Eden itself. And he flies away, and a tall robed woman approaches Kurt saying that she is lost, and people say that he is the kindly one. Kurt kind of brushes her off and points her towards the welcoming hall before teleporting away. Now, we switch to later on that night. Kurt is hiding in the trees and listening to a group of kids around a campfire tell stories about the Patchwork Man. When he hears a crunch behind him, he teleports over and tackles someone to the ground, asking why they were stalking him. And we see that it's Dr. Nemesis, and he quickly gets off of him and apologizes. And Nemesis tells Kurt that he was coming to try and get him to volunteer to help with a social experiment, and that Kurt's idea of a mutant religion can help with it. Kurt tells him that he isn't sure what the religion will look like, and if he can even do it as they walk off together towards the Crucible. And they arrive at the Crucible and see Magneto in the ring, fighting the robed woman that Kurt talked to earlier. And Magneto is beating her with ease and little fight back from her. And as she smashes to the ground again, she sees Kurt and asks why he didn't help, and she wanted him to relieve her pain. Kurt is horrified and jumps into the arena, tackling Magneto and saying to stop it now. She isn't a fighter. All you're doing is hurting her. Magneto gets to his feet and says today she is lesser, but he sees a fighter, and tomorrow they will meet as kin. And he sends a metal dagger at her head, killing her. And he turns to leave as the crowd cheers and yells in excitement. Nemesis rushes over to help Kurt to his feet and says that he bets Kurt feels pretty dejected now. And Kurt says it's not Magneto that bothers him. It's the citizens, as he points to the still cheering crowd. Now, we switch to the next morning at the Arbor Magna on Krakoa. Nightcrawler is alone and watching the Five from a distance as they resurrect the woman from the Crucible, and we learn that her name is literally lost. Professor X approaches Kurt from behind and says he knows Kurt's feeling guilty for not helping her, and tells him to come and greet her with him. And they go down and they get to the pod right as she starts to emerge. When she gets out, everyone instantly starts to puke, and Lost runs off upset. And they start to stop puking, and we learn that Lost's powers are gravity-based, and she puts off her own gravity field that affects them all and causes the vomiting. Over at a different pod, though, Kurt sees the newly resurrected Pixie, and Professor X asks what's on Kurt's mind. And Kurt tells him, "When did you last walk in your garden, Professor? There is a wonder and hope, Ja, but also there is vice and violence and death, cheap death. They cannot all be off playing the hero, and they can't all be here being indisposable. The problem is, I can give no good reason why mutants shouldn't behave as they do. Even at their most savage, I can find no moral flaws in these emerging cultures. But I feel it. Something terrible out of sight, waiting for the cracks to appear. Catholic paranoia, you think?" And Professor X tells him no. That perhaps focusing on something else will help him, though. He says that he detected a presence that he can't get a good bead on, and he thinks that it's preying on the psychic energy of the Krakoans, and that it reads as an Omega level mutant. Kurt says it may be linked to the Patchwork Man he keeps hearing about, and Professor X says that he thinks it could be Legion. Sorry. And he gives Nightcrawler a little bit of a speech at that point. "I haven't shared this with anyone, Kurt. Will you help me? Or at least consider it. If it is who I think it is, he's too unpredictable. The council would send some clumsy team to go fetch him, and he'd react. I expect there would be violence, or worse. There's so much I don't know about him. You must try to understand, Kurt. I have dedicated my life to causes that eclipse the drives of kith and kin. I'm proud of all I've done, but I cannot deny I have been an abysmal father." "Why me, Charles? Why not send Scott or Jeannie or anyone. Because, Kurt, for all that I can dissect minds, for all that I can interrogate dreams at will, nonetheless, you understand people in a way I never could. You're one of the kindly ones, Kurt. And at that point, we switch to later that night. And Nightcrawler is visiting the mutant seer Blindfold's grave when he hears a voice speak to him in his head. A tragedy, eh? Of course, the real question is, what would scare a precog enough that she'd top herself? I notice there's no rush to resurrect folks like her on your creepy wee island. Bit suspicious, that, don't you think? No seers to see? There's a long queue. Credulous as ever, Kurt. How'd you know I'd be here? I know you and Ruth were close. Love readily perishes with that flesh. Aye, that's why he sent you. I don't suppose Dad was ever one for empathizing, not when he had you lickety-splitties to do it for him. I'm sorry, Kurt. You don't deserve to get caught up in this. It's true what they say about you. You are one of the kindly ones. But you're far too late. The bastards are already inheriting the earth. And that... Oh, sorry. As Kurt doubles over in pain, a blue glow bursts from him and Legion appears, floating above Kurt. And that ends our first issue. Taking us to Way of X number 2. Let us pray. Mutant kind has a new home. Krakoa, an island of wonders where sins are absolved and the future is bright. Or so it seems. In truth, something is rotten in the hearts and minds of mutants, leading to self-destructive behaviors and savage cultural movements. Kurt Wagner, Nightcrawler, is determined to fix it. Unfortunately, he has no idea where to begin. So when Charles Xavier detects an Omega-level mutant preying on the nightmares of Krakoans and assumes it to be his own wayward son, Legion, Nightcrawler jumps at the chance to investigate. Now, we open at Blindfold's grave, and Nightcrawler is screaming in pain as the blue glow connecting him to the forming Legion grows. Legion reads his mind and says that he don't like the name Legion, and that he is not the Patchwork Man. Kurt begs him to stop, and David says that he's sorry, he's almost done, and wishes he could say it won't hurt, and he touches Kurt's forehead. David and the glow disappear, and Kurt gets to his feet, asking where he went. And David's voice cuts in and tells him that he's in Kurt's head. And in Kurt's head, we see David floating above a pirate ship crewed by the various aspects of Kurt's personality. We see a Catholic priest, pirates, acrobats, a little bit of everything from Kurt's past on this boat. And David says he was expecting something more churchy, and that Kurt is a very conflicted person, but it's not his fault. And he flies over to the head of the ship and takes a green jewel from it and leaves Kurt's head. He shows Kurt the jewel and says it's a corruption that someone had put into his mind. And Kurt asks him who. David tells him no. First, we have about 10 minutes till my body goes critical and tears this reality in half. And that Kurt needs to get a crew and stop it. He sends him the coordinates and disappears. And we switch to the Green Lagoon bar. Dr. Nemesis is sitting at the bar with Dazzler and Fabian Cortez drinking. And Nightcrawler teleports in and asks Nemesis if he has dealt with David before. Nemesis says yes, and Kurt cuts him off, saying, "Good, come with me," and runs over and grabs Pixie, telling her to come with him quickly. He teleports all three of them to Saudi Arabia, and they see a destroyed lab in the desert, and they rush in to come to a room with a brain in a jar connected to machines. David's ghost reappears and says that the brain is him, and he pulls Nightcrawler and Pixie into the brain. They appear in a city and see all of the hundreds of David's personalities brutally killing each other all over. And David gives a little bit of a monologue. It's funny, I don't even know how these buggers got me. Cloned, kidnapped. All I remember is Ruth's voice. One word, whispered in the dark. Inevitable. Then I was in there. My brain, the same old circus. Oh, I got things running smoothly, but I kept wondering, did she mean me? Am I inevitable? I've died more times than I can count. I've erased myself from history just to show that crappy universe nobody rules me except me. Always come back, like it or not. Always playing second fiddle to the voices in my head. Always defined by the sickness, not the strength. Always bloody Legion instead of David. Well, these Orcus bastards took that way too. Used their machines and their drugs to lock me back out. And for what? To see what happens when the animals get run out of the zoo? So bloody what? Why bother? And back in reality, Nemesis says that his mind is in too much chaos and there isn't anything they can do but kill him. Kurt and Pixie are pulled back out, and Kurt says no and takes the gun from Nemesis, saying a favor for a favor, right, David? And he turns to Legion's ghost. Oh, I am so sorry, people. Oh, I've lost my spot now. I am sorry. He turns to Legion's ghost. Okay, here we go. Did you know Nightcrawler was a type of worm? It's blue, and it's disgusting. Not a clever insult, but one I heard many times as a child. So I took it and made it mine. You are not your flaws, David Haller, and destroying a lump of an empty meat will help you start afresh to rule yourself. Well, perhaps there are sins worth committing. Everybody, get out, please. Father, forgive me for, you know what? Never mind. And he shoots the brain, killing David. The next day at Arbor Magna, Professor X and the other mutants gather around David's new body. And the professor says he's sorry, he can't do it. He's too unstable, it's not safe. And David's voice starts talking to everyone's head and saying, no worries, I'll do it myself. And the blue glow appears and shoots into the new body. And David resurrects himself to everyone's astonishment. He says that he knows they are all too busy setting up the gala, so he will leave them be and not to worry. He has a shiny new brain. It will take a while for the voices to get too loud again. Professor X and Magneto try to stop him, and he says to call him Legion, and that he don't trust either of you. He can smell the secrets and shadows on them, and Kurt's the only one even looking at it. He puts his arm around Kurt's shoulder, and they leave. They go to a hilltop, and Kurt asks if David knows who the Patchwork Man is. David looks at the ground and says yes, he can sense him. It's Bloody Onslaught, Kurt. Bloody Onslaught. And that ends this issue. Leading us to Way of X number 3, The Joy of X. Mutant kind has a new home, Krakoa, an island of wonders where sins are absolved and the future is bright. Or so it seems. In truth, something is rotten at the hearts and minds of mutants. Kurt Wagner, the Nightcrawler, is working to unite Krakoans before they spiral into anarchy and horror. Among his allies is Legion, Professor X's dangerously powerful son, who has identified the entity secretly exploiting mutant divisions, and its Onslaught, a terrifying foe from the X-Men's past. Yet Nightcrawler's first challenge lies not in facing implacable villains, but in making it through a night of socializing in high fashion without blurting the terrible truth. Welcome to the Hellfire Gala. Now, we open at the gala, and we start with a drunk Nightcrawler making his way around various parts of the party throughout the night, and ranting about the first law of Krakoa, make more mutants, until he finally just passes out drunk in a corner. Now, he wakes up the next day severely hungover, and goes to the Green Lagoon to meet with Dr. Nemesis. And when he gets there, he takes Nemesis coffee and gets a telepathic call from Legion. Legion tells him that his drunken rants are being talked about by everyone, and he goes on to tell him that he is hearing stories about mutants being haunted in their dreams, and that he will keep an eye on Arakko if Kurt watches Krakoa. And at this point, we switch to David on the newly terraformed Mars, now known as Arakko. And Pixie comes up to him and tells him to follow her, and she takes him over to Loa and Mercury, and tells him that because of Mercury's mutation, they can't be intimate, and asks that if he can help them do so mentally. Now, back with Kurt, as he walks around the island, he comes across Stacey-X, who is giving out condoms. And he asks her why she's giving them out when the first law is make more mutants. She laughs and asks if he is the sex police now, and leads him towards a nearby building. And at that point, we learn that the building is called the Bower, and it is essentially a mutant brothel / orphanage. Now, back with Legion, David agrees to help and tells them both to lay down as he connects their minds. And it starts off as a great experience for them both, but a dark force begins to form and corrupt the link, causing both women to snap and start attacking each other as they come back to reality. The entity bursts from them both and sets off to the distance, and Loa and Mercury run off in opposite directions. Legion turns to Pixie and asks how she feels about joining him and Kurt in a hunt. Now, back with Kurt again, Stacy leads him upstairs to the orphanage and tells him that most of the babies are left on the doorstep or teleported in, and they've even had people drop them off in person. Kurt is horrified, and she says, "What do you expect when you have an island of beach bod superheroes and no more STDs? You wanted them to make more mutants. Well, here you go. We don't need people to make more mutants. We need people who give a damn." And as they talk, Lost enters the room, and Stacy tells him that her gravity don't affect the babies, so this is one of the few places her powers are safe for others. And at that point, they are interrupted by Fabian Cortez, who is thrown into the room and knocked on his ass by Frenzy, and yet who is yelling for him to get out now. Lost sees him and gets a psychic urge to hurt him. She lunges at Fabian, using her powers to crush him to the ground. Stacy tells Kurt to teleport Lost out of here now, but before he can, a portal opens, and Legion, Pixie, and the Zorn twins charge through it. A shadowed form of Onslaught appears around Lost and knocks Legion and the Zorns back, but Pixie slips by and blows her dust into Lost's face, knocking her out, and the shadows begin to leave. Legion says he can't track it because it's hiding too well, and that ends this issue. Taking us to Way of X number 4, Airs and Graces. Mutantkind has a new home, but the paradise of Krakoa is secretly spiraling into anarchy and horror. To avoid its collapse, Kurt Wagner is aiming to unite all mutants in a shared sense of purpose. To this end, he has been interrogating the 3 laws of Krakoa, hoping to find the basis of a new culture. Now he turns to the second law: kill no man. But there's a devil loose in Eden. Onslaught, a godlike entity, squirms through the minds of mutantkind, hastening to the very collapse Nightcrawler fears. With his powerful ally Legion, Nightcrawler witnesses a manifestation of this adversary during a confrontation between Fabian Cortez and the recently arrived mutant known as Lost. He has questions. Now, we open on Arakko, and we see Kurt, Legion, the Zorn twins, and Lost talking on a hill. Lost explains that long ago, Fabian Cortez killed her parents, and that the Bower was the first time she had seen him since then. Kurt says he's sorry for her parents' death, but it happened before Krakoa, and Krakoa is meant to be a fresh start for all mutants. We learn that they also brought Lost to Arakko because the gravity is naturally lower, and will help control her powers till she can do it on her own. Lost leaves, and Kurt asks if David can help her. Legion says no, she needs closure, and he may make things worse messing around in her head. Behind them, a volcano starts to spew out dust and smoke, and the mutant known as Dust approaches, saying that she is on cleanup duty, and for them all to stand back. She uses her power to turn to sand and flies into the dust and smoke cloud, taking control of it and rerouting it away from all the towns on Akro. Legion tells Kurt that he has an angle to work on Onslaught issue, and he leaves with the Zorn twins. Now, we switch to later in Central Park. We see Fabian Cortez sitting on a bench watching the newly resurrected Gorgon on his knees yelling as Kurt approaches. Kurt asks what is going on, and Fabian says that since Gorgon was killed in Otherworld, when he was resurrected, he came back broken, and that Fabian had used his powers to boost his telepathy. Now he feels all the hate and fear of the humans all around them in Central Park. He smiles at Kurt and says that Kurt now has a morality problem because no one else is coming to help and Gorgon before he snaps and starts killing people. Now, we switch to the Green Lagoon. We see David and Professor X having a sit-down. Professor X asks why David wants a gate key, and David says he can't say because the professor is too invested in Krakoa to see the true issues. Professor takes his Cerebro helmet off and asks David how he's actually doing. David says he's fine, and that the Zorns are helping to keep his mind in check. Charles looks over and asks if David is the one poisoning the minds of all the mutants on the island. David says no, but he knows who it is, and Professor X asks who, but David refuses to tell him. Now, as they've been talking, everyone else at the bar seems to slowly be going feral until the shadow of Onslaught bursts from Professor X, and everyone around except Legion and Zorn start to go crazy and attack each other. Legion yells for the Zorns to attack. Yells for the Zorns, and together they all use their powers and kill everyone that's in the bar instantly. Now, back in Central Park, Fabian says Kurt has three choices. Kill him and save Gorgon, kill Gorgon and save the humans, or go and sacrifice himself to Gorgon's power to save them all. Kurt says that there is always another way, and teleports over to an ice cream vendor nearby and crashes into the cart from above, and making a show of slipping around in the ice cream as he tries to stand up. The crowd around them starts to laugh, and Gorgon starts to calm down now that the hate and fear has died off. Kurt teleports back to Fabian and knocks him out and drags him through the Krakoan gateway. Now, back with Legion. David and the Zorns have traveled to Araco and are standing on top of the volcano. And David gives Zorns the gate seed he got from Professor X and says, every seed grows a gate. Every gate opens a path only mutants can walk. And right now, what mutants need more than anything is a place where the devil can't whisper in their ears. A sacred refuge. A temple. And the Zorns use their power to place the gate seed inside David's mind, and his blue glow bursts from his eyes and mouth up into the sky. And that ends this issue. Leading us to our final issue, Way of X number 5, The Fall. Mutant kind has a new home, but the paradise of Krakoa is secretly spiraling into anarchy and horror. To avoid the collapse, Kurt Wagner Nightcrawler is aiming to unite all mutants in a shared sense of purpose. To this end, he has been interrogating the 3 laws of Krakoa, hoping to find the basis of a new culture. At last, he turns to the final law: respect this sacred land. But there's a devil loose in Eden. Onslaught, a godlike psychic entity, squirms through the minds of mutant kind, hastening the very collapse Nightcrawler fears. His powerful ally, Legion, has taken a different track. He's tried twice, and spectacularly failed twice, to intervene in Krakoa's affair. Now he sits atop Olympus Mons, the highest volcano on Mars. Sorry. With a Krakoan gate key planted inside his brain. Now, we open at Arbor Magna. Professor X awakens from being resurrected along with everyone else that Legion and the Zorns were forced to kill last issue. Emma Frost greets him and tells him that 63 mutants were killed at the Green Lagoon, and the professor asks who did it. Now, we switch to later at Mount Mons on Arakko. And Professor X climbs the mountain and joins Legion and the Zorn's twins at the top. We see Legion levitating in a trance above the volcano, and the Zorn twins standing guard in front of him. The Zorns greet the professor and tell him that he needs to keep his hands and minds to himself. David asks them to secure him as he builds and broadcasts. Professor asks who he is broadcasting to, and they say they don't know. David takes his privacy very seriously. Now, elsewhere on Arakko, Nightcrawler has took Fabian Cortez to meet and work things out with Lost, but it isn't going very well. As soon as Lost sees him, she snaps and starts to assault Fabian, as Nightcrawler panics and tries to stop them both. Now, during the scrap, David mentally calls out to Kurt and says, "Kurt, I told you to focus on the laws. I was wrong. I'm not great when it comes to people. I know that. Sometimes I treat people like things. Then I get surprised when they break. Ouch. Poor Mercury and Loa. Did you hear about that? Someone like me meddling in two lasses' private business? No wonder it went to hell. Worst part is that Dad's way skipping corners and shrugging at the trauma. Long as he gets what he wants. We have to be better than him. Please, Kurt, help me be better than him. This horror, this division, it is in everyone. We have to fight it, but I don't feel, Kurt, not the way you do. You're one of the kindly ones. Best I can do is build the arena, but I don't know what the weapon is. Kurt, for pity's sake, stop bloody thinking and start bloody acting." And Kurt screams enough and teleports to the two of them and grabs Lost by the arm and Fabian by his hair and teleports them hundreds of feet above the planet's surface and drops them. And he gives a little speech to them as they are falling through the sky. "Shut up, Cortez. Shut up and listen. You are 10 kilometers above Mars, and you are falling to your deaths. Lost Gravity's powers will, I think, allow her to slow her descent, and anyone else she may choose to save, except if you die. Except if I die, we both die, and I've switched off your damn powers, Kurt." "Quite so. And I am staying well out of range, so one rabid monster so embittered by he would rather die and kill than ask for forgiveness, and one victim in the full blush of a fresh start, still so fresh of hate, and she would never dream of saving her tormentor. An impasse, yeah? You're thinking it doesn't matter. I'll just die and resurrect. Ignore the silly blue man and his patronizing crap." Sorry. "Patronizing crap. You have forgotten I am a member of the Quiet Council, and although everybody insists I am one of the kindly ones, I must tell you, I am sick to my heart of what is happening to my people. There are millions awaiting the gift of life. You think so meaningless? And I will see you to it, Cortez, that you go to the very back of the queue. You are a mutant. When we say respect this sacred land, only the fool would think we refer to some dreary piece of dirt. Pah! We are the sacred land. When you diminish your other mutants, when you harm them without consent, in body or mind, you are breaking the law, and I will judge you." Fabian and Lost look at each other and start to apologize. When the Onslaught shadow appears and yells, "No telling tales," and Fabian and Lost start to fight again as they fall. Fabian grabs Lost's head and overcharges her powers and kills her, but not before her powers are boosted too much and the moon Phobos starts to fall to the planet's surface. David calls out to Kurt again. "Kurt, I just touched my dad's mind, just for a moment. He'll oppose my resurrection if I die here. Another wee tick on the get therapy chart there. But this is worse than that. The shadow's in him too. It's bloody resurrection, isn't it? That's where Onslaught's getting in. I think he's eating the offcuts, those wee bits of lost life, lost experience between when you get recorded and when you die. I think he eats the parts of us that don't come back. That's what's making him strong. And he leaves parts of himself to fill the gap." Kurt grabs Fabian and teleports to the ground and tells him to overload his powers now. Fabian calls him insane, but starts to boost Kurt's power anyway. Begins to boost Kurt's power anyway. Sorry, I lost my spot for a second. Kurt screams out and says, I'm on fire. I see it. I see how we win. I see how we flourish. The path, the way. But God, Fabian, I won't remember it. When I'm brought back after this, it will be for you to tell me, Fabian Cortez, to remind me. You understand. You of all the people, you will be the messenger. You need say only one thing to me. The rest I will put together. Just tell me the spark. And Kurt teleports up to the incoming moon and starts to do short jumps, teleporting the whole moon with him away from Morocco. He pushes himself till the moon is far enough away and then falls to his knees on the moon's surface and dies. The next morning at Arbor Magna, Kurt resurrects to be greeted by Professor X, and Kurt asks what happened and where Fabian is. The professor tells him he sacrificed himself to save millions of mutants on Morocco. And as far as Fabian goes, well, that's complicated. And he tells Kurt to follow him. He takes him to a drooling Fabian in the healing gardens. And we learn that by overcharging both Lost and Kurt's powers, it has caused Fabian's brain to switch off, and they will have to resurrect him to fix it. And the professor leads Kurt to an overlooking the rest of the island and says, "I'm sorry, Kurt, you can't save them all." And the Fiend pans out, and we see an Onslaught shadow over every mutant on the island. And that ends the Way of X. I hope you enjoyed the video this week. Join us next week as we cover Spawn number 319 through 322. As always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Feedback is always welcome. Also, remember to share and help spread our brand and videos out. You can follow us on the Jabroni Nerd Network Facebook page or on Twitter at Jabroni Network. So until next week, guys, keep talking nerdy.